How's it going, everybody? I am the Texas Man. I hope you guys are all having a fabulous day. Give this video a thumbs up if you guys really enjoy it. Subscribe if you guys have not already. Also, do me the biggest favor of all, hit that bell notification button so you guys don't miss out on future videos or streams here on the Texas Man channel. With that, of course, we are continuing onwards with Stacey. This is part 2 of my read-through of this book. If you guys have not watched and listened to part 1, make sure you guys watch that video before you end up watching this one, because this is just going to be the continuation. Again, this is part 2 of Stacey, and we're going to be reading through at least 3 chapters, and then I will have part 3 out after this, and that will be the conclusion of this book. With that, let's jump right in. Chapter 5, A Fatal Crash. The month of June had arrived at last during my sophomore year. It was the last day of school, and everyone knew it. Juniors were excited about the next year for graduation. Jack still kept pushing us stars around like a bat to a baseball, but he still couldn't change our happiness to wickedness. I had driven Stacey to school that day, but I planned to take all of us stars to a special place for lunch. The bell rang at least at 11 o'clock in the morning, and the rush began to enjoy the summer. I called the stars to inform them of my plan, and they all agreed to the lunch. Within a period of time, hot sand, cold water, juicy burgers, and salty fries surrounded us on the beach in Port Huron. We enjoyed the time there, telling about our summer plans and what we wanted to do next year. The time came to return home, but the drive was cut short. We had been stopped by a police officer. "Officer, what's going on?" I asked, with my windows down. A semi-truck rolled around and collided with another semi-truck and has blocked all traffic, said the officer. I looked at the calendar mounted by the radio and realized my dad was coming home today. I parked by a nearby gas station and began to run towards the crash site. The other stars followed me, but kept their distance. I saw a man covered by a white cloth on a bed, being loaded into the back of an ambulance. I raced past the wall of police officers. I'm sorry. I raced past the wall of police officers and took the cover off of the dead body. It wasn't my father. I breathed. I looked towards the two sideways semi-trucks and realized that they were both West Sides. I asked an officer where the other driver was and if one of the semi-truck numbers was 29045. My answer was that the answer was that the other driver survived and was at a local hospital, which was the driver of the truck number 29045. "Who drives truck number 29045? asked Rosh. "My father," I answered. The stars returned to my parents' car and began to figure out which hospital my dad was located. I decided to call my mom and told her of the fatal crash. My mom requested me to drop my friends off at their houses and pick her up. I agreed to my mom's request, but Stacey wanted to comfort my desolate heart. My mom called Westside and learned where my father was at. I was frightened at the new sight of my dad. I admired the fact that he was alive, but at the same time depressed that he would have to live in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. My mom collapsed to the side of the bed and started to cry. A doctor came in and explained the following to my mom, Stacey, and I. "Your husband or father, whichever the case may be, was lucky to just have lost both of his legs and not his life," said the doctor. "What happened to my dad that his legs needed to be taken?" I asked. "We were told that the glass and heavy objects crushed his legs," said the doctor. "When he arrived, he didn't have any legs. All we did was end the bleeding," said the doctor. The doctor said my dad could return home in 2 weeks. I was becoming more tolerant of the current situation and started to wonder about what caused the fatal crash. Another thought also came to my mind. What would my dad do to provide for the 3 of us without his legs? It scared me to realize that my mom would have to go to work and my dad would remain in the house. Chapter 6, Rosh. The fatal crash involving my dad was ancient to me now. Chilly breezes and fluffy snowflakes continued to surround the city of Roseville in the month of December. The year was still 2010, but in 4 days the year would become 2011. School was out for winter break, and the students from every local school showed up at the largest snow hill every Saturday. Phil, Zach, Stacey, and I always went to events like this, but for some reason, Rosh didn't want to come. I knew, along with the other stars, that Rosh had been tired and unhappy until he eventually didn't come to school at all. I don't remember how many days Rosh missed, but it seemed to be a lengthy period of time. I decided to investigate Rosh and find out what truly was happening to my friend. Combative, aggressive, vindictive, hostile, and repulsive words came from Rosh's mouth when I spoke to him at his front door. He was like a savage lion in a den, and that was corrupted by one of Dr. Jekyll's potions. I tried to find out what his problem was while being calm, yet I was optimistic that my Christian brother was behaving in such a way that cut religion out and was replaced by a wicked young man. "Why won't you tell me what's wrong, Rosh?" I asked. "It doesn't matter. After tonight, nothing will matter," said Rosh. Rosh slammed the door in my face, and I walked away. Rosh's uncle I thought about asking to find out what was going on, but the red van wasn't there at the time. Whatever was going on with Rosh, I planned to find out tonight. I entered my house and took off some of the coverings that protected me from the blizzard-like weather we were in, such as boots, 2 coats, a face mask, and gloves. I called Stacey and told her that I had an unusual conversation with Rosh, and that I planned to break into his house tonight. Stacey knew that I had a key to Rosh's house, and that me saying that I was breaking into the house meant that Rosh wasn't going to be prepared for my arrival. I also told Stacey to inform Phil and Zach of the plan. My plan was to have some backup in case something weird was to occur. The sunset arrived at last, and all 4 of us stars were ready to uncover what Rosh meant when he said, "After tonight, nothing will matter." I didn't ring the doorbell or knock on the clean door screen. Instead, I just opened the door and walked in. Zach flipped a light switch after entering the house after me and signaled Phil and Stacey to enter. All 4 of us wondered where Rosh and his uncle were because the red van was parked in the driveway. We didn't talk much or touch the objects that were scattered on the floor and table. We moved to the kitchen and saw Rosh's uncle lying on the ground, and Phil and Zach ran towards him. "Douglas, look!" said Stacey. The kitchen window had been smashed. Suddenly, Mr. Holmes, Rosh's uncle, stood up off the floor. "Mr. Holmes, where is Rosh?" I asked. "I don't know. I came home, entered the kitchen to see the broken window, and was hit in the back of the head," said Mr. Holmes. "Douglas, I found Rosh," said Zach, in a mute voice. Mr. Holmes ran towards Zach and looked into Rosh's bedroom. Phil, Zach, Stacey, and I came up behind him to see a terrible sight. Rosh's body was being suspended in midair with a rope around his neck. When he said that after tonight nothing will matter, Rosh was referring that nothing would matter to him once he was dead, I said. "Why did he commit suicide?" asked Mr. Holmes. "I'm not sure that he committed suicide with that broken window in the kitchen," I said. Mr. Holmes, along with the rest of the stars, cried for the loss of Rosh Holmes. Phil phoned the local police, and within a few minutes, Rosh's body was being sent to the morgue to find out if Rosh really did commit suicide. The police began to ask all 5 of us questions while the FBI searched the house for clues to Rosh's death. "I want to know why he committed suicide," said Mr. Holmes. "Rosh did not commit suicide," said a coroner, exiting out of a car. "He's right. We just found and watched a video Rosh made that shows us exactly how he died," said an FBI agent, entering the house. The coroner, the police officers, the FBI agent, Mr. Holmes, and the stars entered the house to watch the video. The tape began with the FBI agent fast-forwarding to the moment Mr. Holmes arrived home. "Prepare yourselves," said the FBI agent, pushing down the button play. The video began with Mr. Holmes walking through the front door. Rosh had placed cameras throughout the house when his parents were still alive. "We could find out what really happened to him," said Stacey. The video continued onwards with Mr. Holmes smashing the kitchen window. Then the screen moved on to where Mr. Then the screen moved on to where he smashed Rosh in the back of the head with a beer bottle. Next, Mr. Holmes dragged Rosh to his room, set up a chair and a rope with a hole, and hung Rosh. The video was paused, and Mr. Holmes tried to run away, but was already handcuffed by a police officer. "Finish the video, please," I said. The FBI agent continued the video to where Mr. Holmes left Rosh hanging and smashing the back of his own head. "Mr. Holmes, you are under arrest for the murder of Rosh Holmes," said the FBI agent. The FBI agent took Mr. Holmes away and began to read him his rights. If Rosh didn't commit suicide, what did he mean when he talked about nothing will matter after tonight? Asked Phil. Rosh was talking about his parents' will, and that at midnight he was to receive $1 million. Mr. Holmes murdered Rosh so that he could inherit the money, said an FBI agent. 2 weeks passed by after that night, and the news came about Mr. Holmes' sentence. The sentence was death. Chapter 7. He Did It. A sunrise appeared on the day after Valentine's Day in the year 2011. I parked my green Camaro in the Roseville High School parking lot and strolled in the north entrance of the towering building to see posters throughout the school. The posters read this: Jack Lightbody attempted to rape Stacey Blonde. Police scared Jack away is what Stacey says. What will Stacey's boyfriend, Douglas Armstrong, do? Envious that Jack tried to rape my girl, I ran for Stacey near where she would usually be before school started, which was her locker. I saw her crying and realized that the posters were telling the truth. Stacey saw me, slammed her locker door shut, ran towards me, and hugged me so tight that my ability to breathe was somewhat declined. I have seen the posters, but I want to hear the truth from you, I said. Jack did try to rape me, and the reason the police arrived was because I was able to smash his head with a glass cup and call for help, said Stacey. At least he is in jail, I said. The police never caught Jack. He ran away before they arrived, said Stacey. Can't you tell the police that it was Jack Lightbody that tried to rape you, I asked. No. Jack said that if I told the police or anyone else that he would hurt them, my friends, and my family, said Stacey. I was in shock to know that a rapist was at school without being checked. How did I know Jack was at school? Simple. He was looking directly towards Stacey and me. We were still at Stacey's locker, and Jack remained where he was. Phil and Zach came down from the nearby stairway, greeted us as usual, and began to wonder what I was going to do to put Jack back in place. I took 5 steps away from the stars and kept looking at Jack in the eyes. I turned my outraged body towards the open spot in the traffic flow that was leading to a stairway and stopped. I turned towards Jack and realized he had advanced towards me. I just wanted to tell you that the posters are wrong about last night, said Jack. Oh, really? Stacey said that they are telling the truth. Let me tell you something, Jack. If you touch her or come anywhere near her, I will call the police, I said in a firm tone. I turned around and began to walk towards the stairs. Douglas, duck, said a voice. Kabang! I turned around to see Jack with a handgun pointed at me, but he also appeared to have a bullet hole in the hand that held the handgun. I looked to see that the police officer that patrolled the school had shot Jack's hand and saved my life. The police officer arrested Jack and escorted him to the police car outside. The 4 of us stars followed the officer and told him about what Jack tried to do to my girlfriend last night. Sounds like his sentence of attempting rape, placing fear of telling police about the rape, and nearly completing murder with a gun on school grounds will at minimum keep him in jail until he is 30, said the officer before driving away. Stacey, are you okay now that Jack is out of our lives, I asked. Yes, I just hope that God can enter his life, said Stacey. He will, Stacey, but not today, I said. Chapter 8. Senior Prom. My journey in the school has been amazing, and my junior year at Roseville High School seemed to travel faster than the speed of not just light, but of the sound as well. In past months, Jack Lightbody was finally sentenced to 12 years in jail at the age of 30. he would be allowed to return to the world he once knew. Furious that Jack tried to rape Stacey, Jack's parents got drunk, jumped off a bridge in Port Huron, and drowned. That event alone caused Jack to regret the actions he committed, but the only way Jack would ever not be so crushed by his past is living a life with God. The year was now 2012, and the time was now 9 p.m. I parked my green Camaro, walked out of the vehicle, opened the passenger side door, and escorted Stacey to the school gym. I was wearing a tuxedo, and Stacey was wearing a white gown and white slippers. I paid the fee to enter, showed her school identification to security, and entered the gym. Stacey and I were at senior prom, holding each other's hands. Phil, who did you decide to ask to come with you tonight? I asked. Sarah Cross, replied Phil. You have to be ill to think that the head principal's daughter is going to dance with you, I said. Hello, Douglas and Stacey, said Sarah Cross, joining in on the conversation. Hello, said Stacey and I, at the same time. Phil, before you take Sarah on the dance floor, do you know where Zach is? I asked. No, but be calm. I know he was planning to come, even without a date to dance with, said Phil, before sweeping Sarah to the dance floor. Shall we dance? I asked. Yes, please, answered Stacey. Help! Yelled a voice. A crowd massed around what appeared to be a body that crashed to the floor. I pushed a few people out of my way and saw Zach not breathing. I just called 911, said Stacey. Is he alive? Is the question that was not only rattling through my mind, but everyone else's in the school gym. He still isn't breathing, I said. I began CPR and blew air into his lungs by using mouth to mouth, but nothing was working. The only answer I had to Zach's accident was that he had just had a heart attack. Ambulances arrived 3 minutes later. When help arrived, the thought of him being dead haunted me still. The special and heroic people checked his heart rate and determined the following. He was dead. Although it was true, the ambulance people brought out the shockers, which are used to transfer electricity throughout the body. Charging, said the man with the shockers. Fire, said another man. Firing, said the man with the shockers. 3, 2, 1, said another man. The body of Zach Zettel had been shocked. The people checked Zach's heart rate and said that he had a pulse. He was alive. The ambulance people placed Zach in the ambulance and drove off to a nearby hospital. The senior prom was put to a halt, so I decided to find out what happened. The next morning I, along with Phil and Stacey, and others, realized Zach had had a minor heart attack. Alright guys, and that's going to do it for me. This has been part 2 of Stacey. Make sure you guys subscribe and hit that bell notification button and select all so you guys don't miss out on part 3 coming up very soon in the next week or so. You guys all have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye.